What happens when one of the most famous women in the world walks onto a late-night stage and completely loses control? In just 35 seconds, a single comment turned a friendly interview into an absolute disaster that left the entire audience in stunned silence. Seth Meyer sat behind his desk that night with his usual warm smile, ready to welcome his guest with the kind of respect and kindness he shows everyone who sits in that chair. The audience applauded as Meghan Markle walked out in a designer gown that probably cost more than most people make in a year. She gave a small wave, but there was something different in her expression, something cold. Seth stood up to greet her, extending his hand. "Welcome to the show. It is so great to have you here." She shook his hand briefly, barely making eye contact, and sat down without saying thank you. The audience didn't notice it yet, but Seth did. He kept smiling anyway, because that is what a professional does. "So," Seth began, settling into his chair, "you have been involved in so many amazing projects lately. I would love to hear about what you have been working on." Meghan crossed her arms and leaned back. "Well, Seth, I am glad you asked, but I have to say, I expected better research from your team. The projects I am working on are not just amazing. They are world-changing. There is a difference." The audience laughed nervously. They thought it was a joke. Seth smiled, trying to keep things light. "You are absolutely right. World-changing is a much better way to put it. So, tell us about these world-changing projects." "I would," Meghan said slowly, "but I am not sure this audience would really understand the depth of what I am trying to accomplish. No offense to anyone here, but the work I do operates on a level that requires a certain sophistication." The laughter stopped. People looked at each other, confused. Seth kept his composure, nodding slowly. "Well, I think you might be surprised. We have a pretty smart audience here. They can handle it." Meghan let out a small laugh, the kind that does not sound friendly at all. "Can they, though? I mean, let me be honest with you, Seth. I agreed to come on this show because I thought it would be a good platform to reach people who actually matter. But looking around, I am starting to wonder if I made the right choice." The audience gasped. Seth blinked, clearly taken aback, but he did not raise his voice. "I'm sorry you feel that way. Everyone who watches this show matters. That is kind of the whole point of what we do here." "Is it, though?" Meghan leaned forward now, her voice getting sharper. "Or is it just another talk show where you make jokes and nothing really changes? Because from where I am sitting, this all feels very small." Seth took a breath. You could see him choosing his words carefully. "I think we try to do meaningful work here. We talk about important issues. We give people a voice, and we try to make people laugh, which I think is pretty valuable too." "Making people laugh," Meghan repeated, shaking her head. "That's exactly what I'm talking about. While you are here making jokes, I am actually out there changing lives. I am working with communities that you probably could not even find on a map." "I am sure you are doing incredible work," Seth said, his voice still calm and respectful. "But I do not think it is fair to assume that what we do here does not have value just because it is different from what you do." Meghan rolled her eyes. Actually, rolled her eyes on camera. "Seth, let me explain something to you. When you have lived the life I have lived, when you have been through what I have been through, you start to see things more clearly than other people. You understand who is really making a difference and who is just existing." The audience was completely silent now. This was not entertainment anymore. This was uncomfortable. Seth leaned forward slightly. "I respect your experiences, I really do. But I do not think having difficult experiences gives anyone the right to talk down to other people. Everyone in this room has their own story. Everyone has value." "Do they?" Meghan asked, looking directly at the camera. "Because I look out at this audience, and I wonder how many of them have actually done anything that matters. How many of them have sacrificed what I have sacrificed? How many of them wake up every day knowing that the world is watching their every move? That is enough, Seth said quietly, but firmly. His smile was completely gone now. I invited you here as a guest. I have treated you with nothing but respect. And you have spent the last several minutes insulting me, insulting this show, and insulting every single person in this audience. Meghan laughed again, that same cold laugh. Oh, here we go. The man feels disrespected. Let me tell you about disrespect, Seth. Disrespect is what I dealt with for years. Disrespect is being told that I do not belong. So forgive me if I do not have much sympathy for your hurt feelings right now. Seth shook his head. Your experiences do not excuse your behavior, and they definitely do not excuse you treating people badly just because you think you are more important than they are. More important? Meghan stood up suddenly, her voice rising. I do not think I am more important. I know I am. Look at what I have accomplished. Look at the platform I have built. And then, look at this. This little late-night show that barely anyone will remember in 5 years. The audience started booing. Actually booing. Seth raised his hand to quiet them down, but Meghan was not finished. You know what your problem is, Seth? You are intimidated. You invited someone onto your show who actually has real influence, real power, and you cannot handle it. You are used to interviewing actors and comedians who will laugh at your jokes and make you feel important. But I am not here to make you feel important. I am here because someone on my team thought this might be worth my time. Clearly, they were wrong. Seth stood up now, too. His voice was steady, but there was steel in it. I am not intimidated by you. I am disappointed. I am disappointed that someone with your platform, someone who talks about kindness and compassion, would come on this show and act like this. You have been rude from the moment you sat down. You have insulted everyone here. And honestly, I think it is time for you to leave. Meghan's eyes went wide. Excuse me? You are kicking me off? Yes, Seth said simply. I am. This is my show. These are my guests in the audience, and I am not going to let you stand here and tell them that they do not matter. So, yes, I am asking you to leave. You cannot kick me off, Meghan said, her voice shaking now. Whether from anger or shock, it was hard to tell. Do you have any idea who I am? Do you have any idea what kind of backlash you're going to face for this? I know exactly who you are, Seth replied, and I know exactly what I am doing. You can either walk off this stage with some dignity, or security can escort you out. Your choice. The audience erupted in applause. Meghan looked around, seemingly stunned that people were clapping for her removal. She grabbed her purse from beside the chair and pointed at Seth. This is unbelievable. You are going to regret this. Everyone is going to hear about how you treated me, how you humiliated me on national television. You humiliated yourself, Seth said quietly. I just asked you to stop. Meghan turned to the audience. You are all going to regret this too. Every single one of you sitting here clapping like trained seals. You have no idea what you have just done. Okay, we are going to take a quick break, Seth announced, trying to regain control of the situation. But Meghan was not done. A break? You want to take a break now? After you just destroyed my reputation on your stupid show? Your reputation, Seth said, his patience clearly wearing thin, is something you destroyed all by yourself tonight. No one made you act this way. No one made you say those things. You chose to do that. I chose to be honest, Meghan shot back. I chose to speak the truth instead of playing your fake little game where everyone pretends to be friends and nothing real ever gets said. Being honest does not mean being cruel, Seth responded. And speaking the truth does not mean you get to treat people like they are beneath you. There is a difference between being authentic and being disrespectful, and you crossed that line about 10 minutes ago. A security guard appeared at the side of the stage. Meghan saw him and her face flushed red. You actually called security? You are actually going to have me removed like I am some kind of criminal? You are not a criminal, Seth said calmly, but you are someone who is refusing to leave after being asked multiple times. So yes, if you will not walk off on your own, then security will help you. Meghan looked at the security guard, then back at Seth, then out at the audience. For a moment, it seemed like she might actually apologize, like she might recognize how badly this had gone. But instead, she lifted her chin and straightened her shoulders. Fine, I will leave. But not because you are making me. I am leaving because this whole thing is beneath me anyway. This show, this audience, all of it. I should never have come here in the first place. She started walking toward the exit, her heels clicking loudly in the silent studio. But then she stopped and turned back one more time. You know what the saddest part is? She called out to Seth. You actually think you did something brave here. You actually think you are some kind of hero for kicking me out. But all you did was prove that you cannot handle anyone who challenges you, anyone who is bigger than you, anyone who might actually overshadow you on your own show. Seth did not take the bait. He just stood there, waiting for her to finish. I have been on shows all over the world, Meghan continued. I have sat down with journalists and hosts who actually know how to conduct an interview, who actually know how to treat someone of my caliber. And not one of them, not a single one, has ever treated me the way you just did. Maybe, Seth said quietly, that's because none of them have seen you act the way you acted tonight. Or maybe they did, and they just did not have the courage to say anything about it. Either way, I am not going to apologize for standing up for the people in this room. Meghan shook her head in disgust. Standing up for them? You are pandering to them. You are giving them exactly what they want because you are too afraid to challenge them. Too afraid to tell them the truth about how the world really works. The truth about how the world works, Seth repeated. You mean the truth where some people think they are better than everyone else? Where some people think their fame gives them the right to look down on others? Because if that is the truth you are talking about, then yeah, I am going to challenge it every single time. You are impossible, Meghan muttered. Absolutely impossible. And you are out of chances, Seth replied. Please leave now. The security guard stepped forward, not touching her, but making it clear that he was ready to assist if needed. Meghan glared at him, then at Seth, then swept her gaze across the entire audience one last time. All of you, she said, her voice dripping with contempt, are going to wake up tomorrow and realize what you did here tonight. You are going to realize that you cheered for a man who kicked a woman off his show just because she spoke her mind, just because she refused to play along with his little charade. No, someone in the audience yelled out. We cheered because he stood up to someone who was being mean. Other audience members applauded and voiced their agreement. Meghan looked genuinely shocked that they were turning on her. Mean? She repeated. I was not being mean. I was being real. But I guess that is too much for people like you to handle. Being real does not mean being nasty, another audience member called out. There is a difference. Meghan opened her mouth to respond, but Seth cut her off. Okay, that is really enough now. We are not doing this anymore. Please leave. I am leaving, Meghan snapped. Trust me, I cannot wait to get out of here. I cannot wait to get away from this joke of a show and this joke of an audience. She turned on her heel and marched toward the exit. The security guard followed at a respectful distance, just in case. Right before she reached the door that led backstage, she turned around one final time. You have not heard the last of this, Seth. I promise you that. And then she was gone. The door closed behind her with a heavy thud that echoed through the silent studio. For a long moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Seth stood there at his desk, clearly processing what had just happened. Finally, he let out a long breath and looked at the audience. Well, he said, and despite everything, there was a hint of a smile on his face. That was not how I expected tonight to go. The audience burst into applause. Not polite applause, but real, thunderous applause. People were standing up, cheering for him. Seth held up his hands, looking almost embarrassed by the response. "Thank you, but honestly, I do not feel great about what just happened. I never want to kick anyone off this show. That is not what we do here." "You did the right thing," someone shouted from the audience. "I appreciate that," Seth said. "But it is still not easy. Look, everyone deserves to be treated with respect. But respect goes both ways. And when someone comes into your house, your studio, and treats you and your guests with contempt, there has to be a line. There has to be a moment where you say, 'Okay, this is not okay.'" The audience applauded again. Seth waited for them to quiet down before continuing. "I want to be clear about something, though. Just because someone is famous does not mean they get to treat people badly. And just because someone has been through difficult things does not mean they get a free pass to be unkind. We all have struggles. We all have challenges. That is part of being human. But we still have to be decent to each other. We still have to show up with kindness, or at least basic courtesy." He paused, collecting his thoughts. "When I started this show, I made a promise to myself that it would be a place where people felt welcome, where people felt valued, and I could not let someone stand on this stage and tell all of you that you do not matter, that you are not sophisticated enough, that you are just less than, because that is not true. Every single person in this room matters. Every single person watching at home matters. And nobody, I do not care how famous they are, gets to say otherwise." The applause was deafening now. Seth smiled, genuinely this time, and sat back down at his desk. "So, that was intense. I think we all need a minute to recover from that. When we come back, we are going to try to get this show back on track with a guest who will hopefully not insult everyone in the room." The audience laughed, grateful for the moment of levity. As the show went to commercial break, Seth sat at his desk, looking thoughtful. He had done something that most hosts never have to do. He had stood his ground against someone powerful, someone famous, someone who clearly expected to be treated like royalty, no matter how she behaved. But he had not done it for himself. He had done it for his audience, for the people who showed up every night to watch his show, who laughed at his jokes, who trusted him to create a space where everyone was valued. And in that moment, standing up to someone who thought she was above everyone else, Seth had proven that he meant what he said about respect and dignity. The cameras stopped rolling during the commercial break, and several audience members approached the stage to thank Seth personally. He shook their hands, clearly still processing everything that had happened. "That took guts," one man said to him. Seth shrugged. "It just took being honest and being willing to stand up for what is right." A woman with tears in her eyes reached out to shake his hand. "Thank you for defending us. Thank you for not letting her talk to us that way." "You never needed defending," Seth told her gently. "You all have value that nobody can take away, no matter what they say. I just wanted to make sure she knew that." As the commercial break ended and the show prepared to continue, Seth took a deep breath and put his host's smile back on. But something had changed. The audience had seen him in a different light. They had seen him be more than just funny, more than just charming. They had seen him be strong and principled and willing to make a difficult decision when it mattered. The rest of the show went smoothly. The next guest was warm and funny and kind. The audience laughed and applauded, and slowly the tension from earlier began to fade. But nobody would forget what had happened. Nobody would forget the moment when a host stood up to a guest who thought she was untouchable. Because in the end, that is what the whole situation had been about. It had been about someone who believed that fame and status put her above everyone else. Someone who thought she could walk into any room and say anything she wanted without consequences. Someone who had forgotten, or maybe never learned, that treating people well is not optional. It is essential. Seth had reminded her of that. And in doing so, he had reminded everyone watching that no matter who you are, no matter what you have accomplished, kindness matters. Respect matters. And nobody is too important to be decent to other people. The show ended with Seth giving his usual closing remarks, thanking the audience for being there, thanking the viewers at home for watching. He did not mention what had happened with Meghan again. He did not need to. Everyone knew. Everyone understood. As the credits rolled and the audience filed out of the studio, the conversations were all about the same thing. About what they had witnessed. About how Seth had handled it. About how shocking it had been to see someone so famous act so poorly. "I could not believe what I was hearing," one woman said to her friend as they walked toward the exit. "She actually told us we do not matter." Her friend nodded, still looking stunned. And the way she talked to Seth, like he was nothing, like his show was nothing. In another part of the audience, a man was shaking his head. "I used to respect her. I really did. But after tonight, I see who she really is." Near the stage, a group of younger audience members were talking about how Seth had handled everything. "He stayed so calm," one girl said admiringly. "I would have lost it way before he did." She kept pushing, and he just stayed professional, until he could not anymore, until he had to protect us. "That is what got me," another person in the group said. "He did not kick her out because she insulted him. He kicked her out because she insulted us. That says everything." But more than anything, they talked about how good it felt to see someone stand up for them. To see someone refuse to let them be talked down to or dismissed. In a world where celebrities often seem untouchable, where fame can feel like a shield against accountability. And it was powerful to see that shield not work. To see that actions still have consequences, even for the rich and famous. "Do you think she will apologize?" someone asked their companion as they waited for the elevator. "Are you kidding?" the companion replied. "Did you see her face when she left? She thinks she is the victim here. She actually thinks Seth was wrong for standing up to her." Seth had shown them that, not by being cruel or vindictive, but by simply drawing a line and refusing to move it. By saying, "This is not acceptable," and meaning it. By choosing what was right over what was easy. That was the real story of what happened that night. Not that a famous guest got kicked off a talk show, but that a host chose to protect the dignity of his audience. That he valued the many over the one, and was willing to face whatever consequences came from that choice. A mother who had brought her teenage daughter to the show was having a conversation with her as they walked to their car. "I want you to remember what you saw tonight," she told her daughter. "That is what it looks like to stand up for yourself, even when it is hard." Her daughter nodded thoughtfully. Seth was really brave. He was, her mother agreed, but he was also kind. Even when he was asking her to leave, he was not cruel about it. He did not insult her or try to embarrass her. He just set a boundary and enforced it. In the end, that is what made Seth the hero of this story. Not because he was perfect, but because when it mattered, he chose to do the right thing. Even when it was hard. Even when it was uncomfortable. And even when it meant standing up to someone who expected everyone to bow down to her. He showed that true strength is not about fame or status or power. It is about having principles and sticking to them, no matter who is standing in front of you. It is about treating people with dignity and expecting the same in return. It is about knowing that everyone has value and being willing to defend that truth when someone tries to deny it. That is why the audience stood and cheered for him. That is why people would talk about this moment for a long time to come. Because in a world that often feels divided and cruel, it is rare to see someone stand up for what is right in such a clear and uncompromising way. Seth did not want to be a hero. He just wanted to run his show and make people laugh and give interesting people a platform to share their stories. But when the moment came, when he had to choose between keeping a famous guest happy and defending the people who made his show possible, he chose correctly. And that made all the difference.